All right, and we'll get started. Hello and welcome. Thank you for logging on and attending this afternoon's program. My name is Matt Schumann. I am on the programming team here at Cary Library. Before we begin, please let me know if there are any technical issues that I can try to resolve. You can send those to me in the chat. Any questions that you have for the speakers can be sent via the Q&A button. This program was made possible by the generous donors to the Cary Library Foundation. I'd like to now introduce Ashley Rooney, host of our gardening series. Ashley is a prolific author and the past president of the Lexington Field and Garden Club. We are grateful for her and all the wonderful experts around town that she brings in for this series. So please welcome Ashley.
Thank you, Matt. And I have two more wonderful experts. This is an unusual program since we have two different speakers on two different topics. First, we have Tommy Reilly, who lived in Lexington since 2008, and he's going to talk about chickens. And we have the great fun of going up and taking pictures of his chickens. And then we're going to have Leslie Wilcott-Henrie, who's been a volunteer with the Lexington Farmers Market since inception, and board president since the market became a nonprofit in 2016. So we'll try to hold the questions to the end, but if you're really desperate or have to leave, put them in and I'll try to wedge them in, okay? So let's start with Tommy. Tommy, you're on.
Hello, can you see me okay?
We still.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right, so I think we get the first picture up. So a point of correction, I don't think I would call myself a chicken expert, but thanks you for the endorsement. We got chickens first thing 2019, so it's a lot of learning to do. Of course, the first thing I did was went to the Cary Library and got a couple books on chickens and read those, what they like to eat, how to protect them, and that kind of thing. Probably one of the biggest concerns we had was, coyotes and things getting into the chicken coop, even our dogs. So the first picture is just a picture of an enclosure we built in our backyard that we since fenced up. But it just shows kind of how we were thinking of protecting them from the wild creatures. And, we live over by Esterbrook in the Turning Mill area, which even had some bears last year and in the years prior. So it is a concern. We kind of got interested in chickens just because we were growing vegetables and doing a backyard garden, and we were buying chicken compost from Chicken Farm. We were trying to do our own compost, and chickens just seemed like a natural thing to plug into that. So, chickens can eat your food scraps and help you create better compost and that kind of thing.
And a bigger garden.
Right. So why don't we move to the next picture? So this is, we got lucky, and one of our friends knew a lady in New Hampshire who had too many chickens. So she wanted to get rid of some of her chickens. So we were able to procure 6 chickens that were about a year old. So they start laying eggs at about a year. So this was rather convenient. So this is us transporting them back to Lexington with my 2 helpers in the back seat. So we can go to the next picture.
Is that a dog crate?
That was a dog crate. Yes, it's one of those dog travel crates. We actually have 2 dog crates, and they've come quite in handy with transporting the chickens. So this is just a picture of the coop that we built. It's inside that enclosure, just window. So when they first getting adjusted to their new homes, they say to put them in their coop and leave them in the coop for 24 hours or so, and let them kind of get settled. So that's this phase right here. We got 6 chickens, and actually, sorry, we started with 5. So I don't know what all the breeds are, but this is what we started with. And it was great because they were about a year old and they were already laying eggs, so it was pretty easy. So we can go to the next picture. So this is kind of how the pen ended up looking when we fully enclosed it. It's not fully enclosed. Humans can kind of cut through a gap there, but the pen's stuck in there, and we would spread hay around the pen, and they're kind of set up with their water and their feeder, and they seem pretty happy with that setup. So that worked well. You know, next picture. This is my primary chicken whisperer, Phoenix, with our Snow White, as we call her. So this is one of the chicken that's purely white. And a picture of the small coop in the background that I'll talk about later when we got new chickens. But next picture. Here's the chickens eating on the ground. So, you know, one of the things to think about with chickens is what to feed them. You know, a lot of the commercial chicken operations buy pellets, and this kind of, this is stuff made from corn and various grains. So we'll use that as kind of a base feed, but we decided to free range our chickens. And so, you know, a lot of their food came from, you know, just scratching around, as they're kind of doing here, looking for grubs and worms and whatnot. Pretty interesting what chickens will eat. We found that they like mice and they like frogs, which kind of surprised me.
Wow.
And, when they get something like of that size and ilk, they'll actually fight over it, and all the chickens will try to get it, and one of them will get it and run off, and the other ones will chase them. It can be quite comical. But mostly they're eating kind of worms and bugs and this food that we give them, which is you know, kind of grain based. But they're also free ranging, so they're eating all the grass and stuff, which is good. All right, next. Am I going too fast, or is this about right?
No, it's about right. Somebody did ask, what kind of species? Do you remember any of the names?
In this picture, this is a barred rock, and we have a couple of those. This was actually one of the next generation of chicks that we got as chicks and kind of raised them. We also have some Rhode Island Reds. And there's one that's a Brahma that kind of has a mix of white and black that has little feathers on its feet, which is kind of funny.
Oh.
But maybe go to the next picture. I don't know if that's got more pictures of them. I don't know what these brownish ones were called, but behind the Brahma in this picture, there's the Rhode Island Red, and they're kind of a pretty bird. This kind of shows the coop before we had it fully fenced in. But I'm still kind of not sure how necessary all this was. We never really had animals get into the coop. Most of our problems occurred when the chickens were free ranging. So they would climb over this fence during the day and run around in the yard and free range. I think the coming pictures show some of that. So let's go to the next picture. So wintertime is interesting. They like to snuggle up close to the house in the winter, to stay warm. So this is them chilling out by the kitchen door. Surprising, they don't like snow, so we would try to shovel off some areas for them to walk. But the weather never seemed to bother them. The only thing we really had to deal with in the winter was making sure their water didn't freeze. So we would bring their water container inside and bring it out in the morning. And then we did insulate the coop a little bit. So chat is beeping. Let's see. So the chickens escaped through the opening of the fence. Well, yeah, kind of on purpose. So at night when we lock the chickens in the pen, we shut the doors so they're locked up in the coops. But they can get out of the pen kind of as they wanted to, and that was kind of just on purpose because we wanted free range chickens. The other thing I was going to say about the winter is that the coops are very lightly built, and so they get lots of airflow, which is good for them. But we would staple cardboard around the inside with 4 walls in the winter, so it kind of add a little bit of insulation. I'm not really sure that made much difference, but they're feathered.
Did it last even through a 0-degree night?
We never added any supplemented heat at all. So I temperatures in Lexington are moderate enough that you don't need heat if you have a coop that protects them from the wind. You got 5 birds in a tiny coop respirating. They kind of generate a little bit of their own heat, and they'll kind of crunch up into a little ball and snuggle up next to each other and kind of keep each other warm. So we don't have any supplemental heat. Most of the people I know, the chickens in Lexington, don't either. Up in Vermont and New Hampshire, it can be a little different, but. So the question about whether there's any roosters. We don't actually have a rooster in this bunch. These are all hens. It's they all laid eggs. They weren't noisy. I think there's actually an ordinance in Lexington against having roosters.
Yeah, I think there is. Somebody asked, are there other town regulations you have to worry about?
Well, I think you have to get chickens licensed or something. Our attempts to do that were late, and all those offices were shut down due to COVID, and so we're still waiting to hear back on that. My understanding is that you can have up to 4 or 5 birds without a permit, but if you have more than that, you need a permit. And I don't think you're allowed to have a rooster, but.
Yes, I think that's true. The rooster because of the noise.
Right.
Okay.
So someone asked if how do you keep hawks away? Hawks were never really a problem. So we have livestock guardian dogs in our yard. Maybe we should go forward a picture. I think I included a picture of them. We have 2 dogs that kind of patrol the yard, so I think that helps. And this is you can go forward to the turkeys. So we had to train our dogs not to attack the chickens, and that created this interesting situation where the turkeys started coming back. So we haven't had turkeys in our yard since we first moved in because the dogs like to chase them. But in this picture, you see a bunch of turkeys and then this one barred rock on the right, which is one of our birds, and they kind of just commingled like they were the same species, which is kind of funny. But we didn't really have a lot of issues with hawks, probably because a lot of the tree cover in the house, and the birds had a lot of places to run to keep them from the hawks, so that was never an issue.
What about coyotes?
So we did have coyote problems. So we lost 2 hens to coyotes, and we lost 2 to neighborhood dogs. The coyotes were at night, and they were able to. 2 of the chickens got out of the coop at night, and so they weren't protected. And then the two birds we lost to neighborhood dogs just getting into the yard and finding a chicken and playing with it. So that's one of the hazards of free ranging. But if our dogs were outside, that usually other dogs wouldn't come wandering. So that only happened when our dogs were inside or somewhere else. But, you can go to the next picture. Hopefully I'm not chatting too much here.
Wow. You had a large herd of turkeys.
Yeah, this is another. I think I don't know if there's any chickens in this picture, but this is just another picture of the turkeys coming back, which is an interesting side effect of training the dogs. So we go to the next picture. This shows, so we added 4 barred rocks. So there's 3 of the barred rocks, and there's the brown with the furry feet that I mentioned. And then kind of photo bombing in the back is the turkey hanging out. It's just kind of amusing how they would kind of intermingle. So then you go to the next slide, we can start talking about the next generation. So this spring, probably mid-April, we got 6 chicks from, I think it was Tractor Supply up in Ipswich. So, we had to get a little brooder, which is just a little box with the light, and set up for the chickens to grow. So this is, there's 2 white birds, there's 2 black ones, and there was 2 Rhode Island Reds. So one of the black ones died pretty quickly after, it was hatched like this. These are hatchlings. And then one of the Rhode Island Reds was taken out by a neighborhood dog probably 2 months ago. So we have 4 of these left. And it turns out, I can't tell which one. I think it might be the one in the center. But that Rhode Island red in the center is actually a rooster. So one of the things they do, and they sell you these hatchlings, is they sex the eggs. And there's, it's one of these inexact sciences. And, you think you're getting hens, but, I think it's like 90% accuracy. So one of these guys turned out to be a rooster. We found that out a couple of weeks ago, and he's starting to exercise his vocal cords.
Oh, boy.
He's waking us up every morning at about 5:30. So we're still trying to decide what to do to him. We're thinking we'll try to find somebody who wants a rooster, and we'll take him. It's a beautiful bird, but having a rooster kind of ups the stakes, and you got to deal with the neighbors complaining and that kind of thing. So we'll see what to do there. So, like I said earlier, these guys, getting them at this young was kind of fun for the kids to have a project to raise the chicks and go through the learning process of how to raise them. These guys are all outside in their own coop now. I think if you go to the next picture, it's another picture of the chicks. Yeah.
Aren't they cute?
Yeah, so that one in the
Your
back.
kids used to love them.
Yeah, they were fuzzy. The kids loved playing with them.
Oh, yeah.
It was fun to go through the process of that. So if you go to the next picture, it's one of the white ones when you came to visit.
Yeah.
So that was, I don't know, say July, but.
Yeah, it was about July. He grew up in
April. Yes, yeah. And then the next picture shows a bunch of them around their new coop. We built a little coop for the new guys. The chickens spent a lot of time doing this, scratching around. So there was the one black one left, and then we had the two white ones and the two Rhode Island reds. This is around the time we started noticing that one of the Rhode Island reds was growing a lot faster than the other one. If we knew more about chickens, we probably had realized then it was a rooster, but it didn't really dawn on us until later.
Is it expensive to replace chickens? I mean,
so I get not fully aware of how the pricing works. Like the chicks are like $2 or $3 a pop. So, but you have to raise them for a year. And then some people will sell year-old hens, which I think they call pullets. And those I think are a little more pricey, probably somewhere like $15, $20 a pop. But then you're getting a bird that will be laying eggs very soon. So, it depends on how you want to do it. You can go to the next picture. This just shows the new coop. But, part of this was just having the fun experience of putting together coops and playing with the different options for how you organize coops. Me and my 13-year-old son, Connor, built that coop.
It'd be a great project for the kids.
Yeah. So this is them all hanging out, introducing the young guys to the bigger birds. Was an interesting experience. Like, all the adult birds didn't want the little birds to get any of the food, so it was squabbling and that kind of stuff. But the young birds are quick, so they're kind of good at getting out of the way when the big birds don't like what they're doing. We would feed them green stuff. Sometimes we'd take whenever we did weeding in the yard, we would throw the weeds in the pen, and they would kind of peck at that stuff, and we kind of figured out over time what they liked and didn't like. You can go to the next one. Next picture. Put two of these in there. Let's do one more.
One more?
Yeah, there are 3 in there. Sorry.
Oh, look. They look quite content.
So we have a bunch of hostas, and they kind of decimated 3 or 4 of these. It turns out hostas, when they bloom in the spring, are pretty tasty to chickens. So, this is them. But on the other hand, we didn't have to weed this area of our yard at all. The chickens kind of ate all the weeds and did a lot of scratching and looking around for worms in this area. So that's one of the benefits. Let's go to the next one. This shows kind of what happens in the morning if you walk out and you haven't given them any food yet. They'll follow you and run across the yard. This part of the yard is a little open, so they'll kind of run through this part of the yard. It's cute. You go to the next picture. So this gets to one of the things about free ranging. So that this is all the little guys, the youngest generation. The barred rock that's on the chair was actually given to us by a neighbor who had chickens and then lost all but one to coyotes, and so they gave us the one left because they didn't want to have a single bird. We call him Oreo. But that bird lounging on the chair with the stripy feathers, that's Rhode Island red, that's the one that turned out to be a rooster.
Yep. That's a definite coxcomb.
They like to hang out where you like to hang out. So, one of the things that we had to deal with is they would hang out on all of the patio furniture, and, chickens poop all over the place. So one of the things is, dealing with cleaning up the patio and dealing with that mess was one of the trade-offs of free ranging them, but it wasn't too bad. Let me go to the next picture. And this one's similar, it's a wide view. We can go to the next one. I think we have. So my wife liked to have coffee in our swing in the morning, and the birds would frequently come up and sit next to her while she was on her laptop doing her work, and we'll sit right there, right next to you.
Yeah.
Wait for you to give them some food. Really interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't think if there's any. We thought about whether we wanted to fence them in and kind of keep them free ranging in a section of the yard, but enclose them with some kind of fence or electric fence to keep them from invading the human spaces. But we're still toying with that idea. It's kind of a pain in the butt to have to clean up after them everywhere.
Yeah.
So we go to the next picture. Yeah, so she can see some of the poops they leave on the, some of our bins and stuff. But they liked hanging out in this area because it was a corner, and we got protection from birds and stuff. And the next picture is a funny one. So this is actually from 2 days ago. Where we live in Vermont now has a pond nearby, and frogs come popping through the yard. So this was them fighting over a frog that one of them got, and they run around and basically play keep away with the frog until one of them finally eats it.
It must be great fun to watch.
Yeah, it's pretty comical.
You didn't mention, before we go on to Leslie, you didn't mention the eggs. Are you getting wonderful eggs?
Right. So that was obviously the most, one of the main motivations of having chickens was getting the eggs and eating the eggs. If the chickens are between 1 and 3 years old, you will usually get around 1 egg a day, a little less than that. So with our 5 chickens in their prime, it would average about 4 a day. And then during the winter, it slows down a little bit. You can add artificial lights to kind of counteract that a little bit. But as they use more energy for heating, keeping themselves warm, they'll lay less eggs. So in the winter, it dropped down to 2 or 3. And then now they're getting to the point where they're, after 2 years of laying eggs, they start to slow down. So we're starting to see some of that in our older birds. And the younger ones aren't laying chickens. So right now we're getting about 2-3 eggs a day because the older birds are slowing down. The younger ones aren't there yet. So we'll probably get some more in the spring.
Yeah.
So, beef that up.
Well, thank you, Tommy. We should move on quickly to the Lexington Farmers Market, which is in its 16th year. And any more questions for Tommy, he's going to be here at the end of the program. So Lexington Farmers Market brings farmers and specialty food vendors to connect directly with customers with healthy local food. The LFM works closely with town officials and local organizations to bring the best to Lexington and has become a valuable community institution. And here's Leslie to talk about it.
Hi, thank you for inviting the Farmers Market to the Garden Club presentations. It's really an honor to be able to tell people about the Farmers Market. You can go to the first slide. So the Farmers Market was founded in 2005 after 2 years of really diligent effort by 3 Lexington residents, Sonia DeMarta, who's in the middle, Raul Marquez on the right, and Lori DeLiso. The town after looking at a number of sites, gave the farmers market the spot that's known as Fletcher Park, or the town conscience land, which is right really on what's considered the gateway to Lexington. It's been a wonderful location for us in terms of visibility, and people, I think, in the town and the community really like the idea of this visible farmers market on Tuesdays, greeting people as they come into town. So the market's opening day was in June of 2005, and we are now in our 16th season.
Wow.
The next slide, please. So the intent of the market was founded to support originally the local farming sector and small farms, and preserve farmland, which is under great demand, particularly in a state like Massachusetts, where there's a lot of development and demand for housing. We wanted to create a place of commerce for our farmers and vendors to make sure that they were able to make a living at what they do, educate the community about healthy eating, and also promote sustainability and sound environmental practices. And all of those are kind of woven into some of the events that we have and some of the community outreach that we do. You can see from the picture on the bottom right, we're open until the end of October. In the summer season, we open the end of May, we go to the end of October. So we go from not a whole lot other than greens in the beginning to full-on pumpkins and squash, and going through all the seasonal food that farmers can grow. The next slide, please. So the market, after a few years, we broadened when we were going to be open at the request of both our farmers and vendors and our customers. So we have had a Thanksgiving festival for, I believe, 12 years now. It's held 2 days before Thanksgiving, and it's a great way for people to stock up before the holiday, and it's a nice sort of bridge going from the end of our season into now what is our bi-weekly winter market that we call the Small Yet Mighty Winter Market. It's from January to April. And again, we open that winter market at the request of our farmers, vendors, and customers, primarily for two reasons. Farmers and vendors really wanted to have a bridge that took them from the end of the regular growing season into the following spring. So it was a great connection for customers, but for our customers also, they really wanted access to healthy local food.
Leslie, where is the winter market held?
So it has been held, for 2 years we held it at the farm stand at Lexington Community Farm, and it has been for the past 4 years at the Waldorf School in Lexington in their gymnasium. Oh. This year we're working out what we're going to be able to do. We don't know if we're going to be able to have an indoor market because of all of the COVID restrictions, but we are trying to come up with some creative solutions to still link our farmers and vendors to our customers who want to continue to be part of the market. So stay tuned for that. We're in the process of figuring out what that's going to look like. Now, unfortunately, we can't really hold an outside market because, you know, New England, you never know what the weather's going to be. So next slide, please. So last year was our 15th birthday. We considered ourselves full-on teenagers by that point. And we had a celebration at the market. We were very grateful to have State Senator Mike Barrett and State Representative Michelle Cicolo, who's from Lexington, come to the market, present us with a citation from the state, which read, they noted the LFM's, quote, skill, prowess, and perseverance in bringing locally grown, sustainable agriculture to Lexington. There are representatives from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Mass Farmers Market, the town manager spoke, members of the Board of Selectmen were in attendance. So we were grateful to be able to acknowledge that occasion and to be joined by so many people who had been an integral part in making it happen and helping it keep going with such robust energy.
That's great.
So we now have a time-lapse video that we shot a few weeks ago that we thought might be interesting to show what it takes to build the market at the market site at Fletcher Park. And it gives you a sense of what goes into creating that physical space every day. And I'm going to give you some more information about farmers markets while we're looking at that video. Here we go.
Yeah.
So originally, one of the challenges and the interesting things about the farmers market was we spent a lot of time educating people. People really wanted to know what buying local and seasonal meant, which meant explaining why we don't have bananas and avocados and limes at the farmers market, because those aren't grown in our region. So it really was not only saying what's available, but how do you use it? How do you work with the produce in a seasonal way? And how do you look at something that you may not see in 2 weeks and create wonderful meals out of it? We also wanted to educate people about sustainable farming and soil quality. This came really from the farmers. It's building relationships between farmers and customers and getting people to really know that they can trust their farmer to tell them what to do with the products they bring to the market. And I can see we're kind of slowing down on this.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I'm not
Okay.
sure why that's happening, but I think we'll have to just let it go.
It's okay. Maybe it'll catch up. So I'm going to talk about the summer market and what it looks like in a regular year. This year is anything but regular. This market is set up for the COVID restrictions we have this year. So you can see we have barriers around the market, and we have a lot of spacing between our tents. Normally we have around 24, 25 farmers and vendors at the market each week. This year we have 15. So that's why the spacing is the way it is. One of the important things about the LFM is we're what's considered a producer-only market, which means that we require all our farmers and vendors to grow or create the products they bring to the market. It's a pretty rigorous process to get into our market because we want to ensure that people are following those rules. It's about the integrity of the market, and it also shows the integrity of our farmers and vendors. And it's something that people really pay attention to, I think, at markets. They want to have those conversations with the farmers and vendors. We average around 500 customers daily. Our market is open from 2 to 6:30 or 6 p.m. as of the beginning of October because of sunset. We have a 24-week season. In 2019, we had 34 farmers and vendors who came either weekly. Within that, they come weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. We also had 20 community organizations, 28 artisans who rotate through an artisan tent that we have. I should note that all our artisans also produce their items locally. We don't allow anybody to resell something that they didn't create or make themselves. So we have a really wonderful group of artisans. And we also host local musicians. Oh gosh, that finished quickly. Okay. We hold some special events such as Health and Wellness Day, sustainability. We have a very active SNAP program. We were the first farmers market in Lexington to have a SNAP match program where we match up to $15. And it's grown substantially this year. It's been a very substantial program because of the number of people who are out of work and needing food assistance. We think that this year we project we're going to need to raise up to $11,000 to match the needs of our community, which is a commitment of ours. So just a little plug here, if anybody would like to donate to that, you can go to www.lexingtonfarmersmarket.org to learn more about our SNAP program and how to donate. I'll give you just a couple of interesting general facts. The food sold at the farmers market travels only 28 miles from the farm or business where it's grown or produced to get to the market. The average distance food travels in the United States is 1,500 miles. So we're cutting down on the carbon footprint on the food that you get at the farmers market. Over 770 acres of diversified farmland is kept in production by LFM farmers. So that's farmland that isn't turned into housing or used for other commercial use. And Massachusetts has the third highest number of farmers markets in the country after New York and California per capita. So we think that's a pretty interesting fact. We have a different growing season than California, but we have a very committed community of people who come to the farmers market and support these markets all over the country. So all over the state, I mean. So the next thing we wanted to do, the next slide, is part of the local producer process is we do farmer and vendor visits. We visit, we can't do it annually because they're time consuming, but we visit all of our farms on a somewhat regular basis, as well as our vendors, to go to see where they're creating the products they bring. And we thought it might be a fun thing to show people what happens when you do a farm visit and the things you get to see when we go to visit farms. So we're going to highlight 2 farms today: River Rock Farm, which is a beef farm, and Kelly Farm, which grows vegetables and specializes in Asian vegetables. Next slide, please. So we're going to start with River Rock Farm. So River Rock Farm was founded in 1996 by John Conove on land that his parents owned in Brimfield, Mass., which is about 1 hour away from Lexington. Mm-hmm. John came to the market the first year in 1995 and was there as well in 1996. So he was what we considered one of our pioneer farms when the farmers market opened. Next slide, please. John had spent the summer of 1995 volunteering with Heifer International in Arkansas, and he wanted to learn about animal husbandry. It was there that he met Charlie Sayre, who was from Hingham, Mass., and they became close friends. The first fence was built on the farm in 1996, and John was in the process of building a strong reputation for his small beef farm when he was tragically killed in a car accident in 2006, so only 2 years after he had actually started farming. Next slide, please. Following John's death, John's family worked to keep the farm going, which was very challenging without a dedicated farmer. Charlie had stayed in touch with John's family. He was then living in Colorado, where he was working in event marketing and resort sales, and his new wife, Lindsay, was working in graphic design, so really pretty far from farming. In 2012, they decided to make a significant life change, and they moved out to Brimfield to take over the farm. In 2013, they brought River Rock back to the Lexington Farmers Market. I took this photograph on the first day they came back. I didn't know them well at the time. I just met them on that day. And as they both commented when they saw the photo, we both looked really scared. Starting a new enterprise, it's something they had turned their life upside down to begin, was really daunting. Next slide, please. So River Rock is a 50-acre farm with land that Charlie and Lindsay have carefully reclaimed and responsibly manage. At the farm, they have on average around 40 animals. Right now, they have 49. They could have more, but what the challenge is that it's difficult for the pastures to regenerate if there are too many animals on the land. This year, for example, 2020 has been so dry. We're in the middle of a drought, as particularly all the gardeners know. The pastures are pretty burned out. If there were more animals on the land, it would stress it out so much that they wouldn't be able to be the grass-fed enterprise that they are. Next. So as I mentioned, the animals are grass-fed, they're pasture-raised, no hormones or antibiotics, and they're finished on a limited amount of GMO-free corn. They're allowed to eat corn as they choose while they're in the pasture, but grass is the bulk of their diet. On the average, animals are on the farm for 2 to 3 years, from birth until they reach the weight of 1,600 pounds. At that point, they go to slaughter. Their slaughterhouse that River Rock uses was designed by Temple Grandin, who I'm sure people have heard of. She was a prominent advocate for the humane treatment of livestock for slaughter. Next slide. Charlie and Lindsay are really a great example of the hope that the farming community has for the sustainability of small family farms. In addition to growing the farm, they now have 2 daughters, Penelope, known as Pen, and Maddie, who's the baby right there, but she's now 3, who help out with all the farm chores. There is an acute need for young farmers. The overwhelming number of farmers in the U.S. are over 55 years old, and it's a challenge to find younger farms to save their farms and land from development. Next, please. These are some wonderful photos of calves that were born on the farm. The one on the bottom left was born 2 days before we made that farm visit. Mom was taking a lot of care to make sure we didn't get too close.
Yes.
On average, 20% of River Rock's animals are born in the farm. They hope to have 10 or more born each spring, and then they want to keep the females, the heifers of those, to add to their breeding stock. They do occasionally keep a bull for breeding purposes. As they raise more heifers, they will slowly and carefully continue to grow their breeding stock. They'd like to get that number to around 20 in the years to come. Next. In a regular year, River Rock depends on farmers markets for over 50% of their sales. This year with COVID, farmers markets are providing over 70% of their sales, with 20% for CSAs and only 10% for restaurants, which is a drop of 75% of what they usually sell to restaurants. So you can see we're a vital outlet for sales for these small family farms. Without farmers markets, many small farms would struggle to survive. Next, please. Charlie and Lindsay are really committed to following humane and ethical practices for their animals while also being good stewards of the land. Their goals for River Rock Farm are always changing, but while they're fluid, there are a few constants. Charlie recently said to me, "We're always trying to keep our beef consistently great with a simple recipe full of full, fat, happy animals with great attention to them in our land, producing the best dry aged beef we can. If we can maintain that, the rest seems to fall in line." So
Nice story.
that's our visit to River Rock. They're wonderful people. I'll tell you, one of the great things about these farm visits is you get to know the farmers in their space and in their environment and see how they farm. And it really is, it's so fulfilling to see what they do and what we see at the market sort of online. So hopefully this gives a little bit of a taste of it. Our next slide, we start with a different kind of farm, which is Kelly Farm, which was founded in 1880. If you don't know them already, this is Ernie and Shuli Kelly, who are the owners of Kelly Farm in Shelburne, Massachusetts, which is a little less than 2 hours from Lexington. Ernie's great-grandfather bought the farm in 1880, and since then, Kelly Farm has been a small-scale, diversified, get ready, vegetable, fruit, poultry, and timber farm. There was a dairy farm there at one point, operating until 1996. So I guess diversified is a broad blanket for all the things that take place. Ernie grew up working on the family farm and has many years of agricultural experience. Oops.
Keep going.
Sorry, my
Yep, he holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Plant and Soil Management from UMass and is a retired program manager for the Mass Department of Labor. Shuli, Ernie's wife, has an associate degree in business management from GCC and a Bachelor of Science degree in farm management from UMass University Without Walls, and has been growing Asian vegetables for over 30 years. They started growing Asian vegetables in a small market garden after they were married in 1981, and they inherited the farm completely in 2014. Ernie had shared it with a cousin before that. They carry out all of the production and harvesting on the 2 acres of market garden and in 2 greenhouses by themselves with no additional help.
Wow.
From sun up to dark, at least 6 months a year, 7 days a week. So when you see them at the farmer's market, they've been up at sunrise picking the vegetables and harvesting the vegetables that you're going to be purchasing later that day. Ernie told me that they keep the clothes that they change to come into the market in the barn. They come in from the fields, they change, they get in the car, and they head to our market. Wow. So it's about as fresh as it can be, literally. Next. So Kelly Farm grows over 60 types of vegetables and specializes in Asian vegetables for which there's a growing demand. Roughly half of all vegetables they grow are Asian varieties, and many they grow from their own seed. The reason they do that is that it is very difficult to get some of the seeds. It's no longer in production. For instance, the amaranth, which you see in the top right, the seeds are not commercially available. So they save seeds and select the variety for the beautiful color variation that you see, and also for the taste. They've had these seeds for over 40 years. They also grow their own seed for the yellow pole bean, which is the slide on the left, that's really popular at the Lexington Farmers Market. The seeds for this variety are very scarce, and also it's very difficult to find disease-free seed. So they ensure that the seed they have is from the stock that they've used before. Next. So Ernie and Shuli have 2 acres and 2 greenhouses in active vegetable production. They've been certified organic since 2016 and had been growing vegetables with organic methods for 5 years before that. It's a very difficult process to be certified organic. What they have to do to show how they care for their land and care for their produce is very exact, and it's impressive that they have it for the size operation that they have and the fact that it's the 2 of them that farm. Next. So Kelly's farm has some challenges, as all farms do. Their greatest challenges are twofold: repairing and maintaining the farm buildings on this old farm, and also having enough labor to carry out the day-to-day operations. At the time they inherited the farm buildings, including the house where Ernie grew up, they were in a pretty rundown condition. So little by little, they're working to improve the farm and the structures on the site. And they are committed, since the houses are historic structures, to preserve the historic feel of them while they're doing any repair work. In addition to the restoration work, they want to continue to expand what they can do on the farm. So they're going to be adding a new greenhouse this year, which allows them to extend the growing season while creating more desirable conditions for some of their products. Next. The new greenhouse that I mentioned is going to help them grow some of the vegetables that really prefer hot conditions, including bitter melon, which you see here on the left, this very funky vegetable, something called edible loofah, and yard-long beans. In addition, the framework of the greenhouse is going to allow things that like to climb, like those beans we saw in the last one, to have a place to grow. The greenhouse is also going to protect some of the produce from certain diseases, including late blight, which you gardeners out there know can be a real issue.
Yep.
There was not late blight this year, and part of what a greenhouse does is it creates drier conditions so that the leaves aren't impacted and in turn the plants. Next. So they grow over 60 types of vegetables on Kelly Farm, and I asked Ernie to tell me a little bit about the importance of selecting the right varieties, and what he said is the overriding importance to any small-scale farmer is to choose something not only that your shoppers want to get, but that is high quality, that sets it apart from what would be considered commercial trade vegetables, the things that you see in a more typical grocery store. Those vegetables are often bred that you see in a grocery store to withstand the rigors of being shipped long distances, remembering that 1,500-mile distance that a lot of produce can come from when it comes from California, for example. So they look for something that is also high quality, but also has unique eating qualities, particular tastes. So they look for vegetables that have those qualities with what they decide to grow on their property. Next. Knowing the right varieties to grow is, as Ernie said, a very arcane subject that incorporates knowledge of the growing and culinary qualities of each variety, but also some intuition about buyer preferences. He said, in this regard, experience helps, but the actual selection of varieties is as much an art as it is a science. Next. So Kelly Farm's only been at the market for 4 years, but they've built a loyal and very enthusiastic following. They're not only growing produce of the highest quality, but they're educating people about foods from other cultures and selling more vegetables to people who are trying them for the first time. These include things like water spinach, which has a taste similar to lettuce, as well as bitter melon, which was that kind of bumpy, long, zucchini-looking thing that was in one of the previous slides. It has a very specific and acquired taste, but many customers have come to really appreciate it and have become regular purchasers of the bitter melon. Ernie talks a lot about the trust that customers place in them and the responsibility they feel to grow responsibly and bring the best quality products to the market. They're a great asset to the Lexington Farmers Market, and I think also an example of the commitment and tireless work that farmers of all ages bring to what they do. We had two different generations here. We have Lindsay and Charlie at River Rock Farm, who are newer, younger farmers, new to it, and Ernie and Shu Lee, who have been farming or growing for many years and still show that same kind of commitment. So we're lucky to have those farms and other farms like them at the Lexington Farmers Market. So next.
Right.
This slide is one of my favorite pictures of the market from, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. This was when we had a full and robust market. You can see community, you can see people purchasing, you can see bags full of goodness, blue sky. This is what we try to create at the market, just a great community feel where people come to buy healthy local food, support the local economy and farms, and also just see each other, great neighbors and friends and community members. So,
would you add what you told me, what the state awarded you as an essential worker?
Oh, yes. So thank you for asking that, Ashley. So like many organizations and businesses, when COVID hit, we were concerned about what was going to happen. We were still in the middle of our winter market. The governor deemed farmers markets an essential service. I've always viewed ourselves as essential, but we were gratified to have that, to be included in that category. And what it meant was that we were able to continue without a break with our winter market. We moved outside. We had committed farmers and vendors who came. We had committed shoppers who came. We had safety protocols in place. And we were one of the few markets that was able to continue without interruption in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and continue to bring quality produce to our customers who in many cases were not either able to find some of the things we sold or were not comfortable going into indoor grocery stores. They felt safer outdoors at our farmers market. And that continues, I would say, with our outdoor market in the summer. People feel safer, they feel more comfortable, they feel that the protocols that we've put in place have been more than sufficient for them to want to come to the market. And the Lexington Farmers Market, I'm really proud to say, has set an example for other markets. We were a leader as we were all trying to find our way into how to hold a farmers market in a time of social distancing and restrictions and masks. And we do require people to wear masks at the farmers market, but we do whatever we can to make a comfortable, safe environment for people to still find healthy local food. So thank you for asking about that.
Thank you. Let's put Tommy back on because we're almost done. If there are any questions, we have a couple of minutes before we say goodbye to Leslie and Tommy. Where's the wing of Marcy Coxcombs? I got all that. Well, Kim Bradshaw asked, how do you keep hawks away, Tommy?
We didn't really have too much problem with hawks. I think, having adequate tree cover helped. And I think having some doggies running around the yard probably helped. But that wasn't really an issue.
I've been having hawks sweep right down in front of me and land in my neighbor's driveway. I'm interesting that you don't have a problem there.
No kidding.
Okay. Any other? So I thank you all for being with us today. Next week, Peter and I will be talking about how you put your garden to bed for the winter. And you've heard Lexington Farmers Market story. They will be around. They will be here through the holidays and hopefully through winter market. And we can try to keep them going because certainly what I saw of those farmers was interesting food. Mm-hmm. And Tommy, best of luck with your chickens. I think it's wonderful. I grew up as a kid collecting chicken eggs, and I didn't really like those chickens then, but now it makes a lot of sense to me to keep chickens. You have the space and the energy.
We keep doing it. We're getting more and more. We'll see. Work out.
Maybe you'll be bringing eggs down to the Lexington Farmers Market. So I thank you all. And let's close for today. Matt, you don't have anything to add?
No, just I was gonna say thank you, both Leslie and Tommy and Ashley, obviously, for coming today, and thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us. If anybody has any questions, you can email us through our website or any information. We love to talk about the farmers market, as you can tell by the smile on my face. So
You talk very eloquently, too.
thank you.
Goodbye, all.
Thanks, everyone.